आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। गुकारस्तु अन्धकारो वै ऋकारस्तु निवर्तकः अन्धकारनिरोधित्वात् गुरुरित्यभिधीयते। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। So we were on the topic of the invariable relationship between my feelings of smallness, of limitedness, of dependence upon external factors, in short called jivatvam. So a mutual relationship between jivatvam, which is invariably connected to a sense that I am the doer, I am responsible for my life, I have to figure out what to do. Now, the others may help me here and there, but really I am the main architect of my life. So it is a catch-22 according to the Vedantic teaching. This feeling that I am a limited being and this feeling that I am upholding my limited being as best as I can. So this mutual relationship between these two is what would be called catch-22. You cannot get rid of jivatvam, your sense of limitations, until you can understand or to know or to feel that you are not the karta, you're not the doer, you're not the bhokta, you're not the recipient of the results. And you cannot feel that you are not the karta, vice versa, until the jivatvam is gone, as it is at deep sleep. In deep sleep, neither the jivatvam nor the kartritvam is available. You are just peaceful by yourself. Nothing bothers you. So it's a catch-22 because until kartritvam is resolved, you cannot have jivatvam resolving, and you cannot do the vice versa. So here the teaching presents the fact that, really speaking, you might manipulate the relative strengths of jivatvam and kartritvam to a small degree, but it isn't until you really understand that your both jivatvam and kartritvam is a false superimposition on yourself. You are not the karta or the bhokta. You are not a jiva. You are the very essence of this world, which is Brahman alone. And so this is what has to be pointed out. I have to submit myself to this teaching from some qualified person who knows what it's all about. And not only that, but my mind also must evolve to a point where such words that you are the whole, you are not you're asangaha, such words do not sound hollow. So two things involved. One is that you have to find the right person who can really teach this to you. And the other one is that you must also improve your qualifications so that at least this, even though this is a very tall truth, but at least it should ring true to you. If it doesn't completely ring true, then it doesn't mean anything. Mere words are not going to be useful. It's like that of a story of an Englishman, and I think this is a true story. I think Swami Maheshananji presented this in one of his books. There was a visiting Englishman who understood that the depth of the Vedic knowledge in India is just wonderful. There's nothing like that in England, in the Christianity. And so he came to India and he immersed himself, and he started reading about the Vedanta and Upanishads. So the story goes that he goes to a sadhu one time and he said, "Sir, can you teach me Gayatri mantra? I understand it is a very important mantra, and I want to learn how to chant it so that it can bless me." So the sadhu told him, "The way you are, how much I know about you, your chanting the Gayatri mantra will be useless. And therefore I will not really spend the time to teach you much as I would like to, but you cannot do this. Yeah, I cannot do this because you won't get anything out of it." So he says, "Well, a mantra is a mantra. Understand that the mantra, no matter how one chants, blesses one. And so if I just know the intonations, the swaras, and I chant it accurately, that's enough. That should really be enough. So I don't understand why you're not doing it." And he says, "No, there's a difference." So he says, "What's the difference?" He says, "Okay, I'll tell you an illustration." So the sadhu told him, "Listen, there was a very powerful king, and he also had a friend from high school. And so this guy from high school came to visit with him. And so he was ushered into his palace. There were palace guards who were all, powerful with guns and so on and so forth. And they escorted him into the king. So all of a sudden, this friend of the king turns to one of the palace guards and pointing out to his friend the king said, "I want you to arrest him right now." So the palace guard sort of laughed, giggled, didn't know what else to do, and didn't do anything. He just stood there. So the king instead was not only was he a little bit amused, but kind of enraged about what his friend had done. So he told the palace guard, arrest him. The palace guards immediately took out their handcuffs and put him around his wrists and arrested him. So the Mahatma said, listen, the words were the same, arrest him, arrest him. But the qualifications are totally different. It has no meaning, no effect on someone. Very similarly, that is the case with you. If you want to really be qualified to understand Gayatri Mantra, then please demonstrate it to me that you have really studied the Shastra, you understand what the import is, and then you can come to me, you can explain it to me, and I'll be happy to teach the Gayatri Mantra to you. So very similarly to this is the fact that we study the Shastra sometimes, and it looks like it's just words. You are asangaha, you are free, and so on. But the words alone are not going to deliver the goods. I have to really qualify myself step by step by solidifying my background with my own questions and answers, dialogue with the Guru. And once I really sort of elevate my mind to this rarefied air, then words that Tattvamasi will really have an effect on me. So what I was saying was that really speaking, just by doing an analysis of Jivatvam and Kartritvam alone doesn't really do anything. But if I am told that you are the very free person and I grasp it with my background and my prayatna, my effort, then we have a completely different situation on our hands. Different situation. So the different situation on our hands would be that I kind of know, I can pretty much understand what my Guru is talking about, and I can relate to it to quite a degree. But my prarabdha, my karmas and my way of dealing with the world and so on continues as though I don't understand any of this. So this talk by Swami Akhandananda Ji is not meant for people who have not been given the instructions that your Swarupa is moksha. You are inherently free. If they have not been given this instruction, or if they have been given this instruction, but they have not qualified to really understand it, then this is not the talk for them. But if they are, then to resolve their doubts so that they have a very firm conviction that this is what I am, this analysis of Vyavahara Shuddhi, which is the main title to both sections of the book. We are taking the second section of the book, which is called Asangata. So then through the Vyavahara Shuddhi, your mind becomes ready. But the method of getting to an understanding that I am Asangaha, So now comes the real, now that we have given the background as to who is it meant for, who is it not meant for, then we can now embark upon the relationship between Kartritvam and Jivatvam. This is where the work on reducing the Jivatvam becomes useful. So there, the Acharyas say, you cannot attack the sense of limitation directly. You can't do that. You can be in meditation and said, I am a Sangaha, I am a Sangaha, I am not connected, I am not connected, I am free, I am free. It doesn't do anything. In fact, it's interesting. I was reading this. I think, remember, I was telling you that Swami Dayananda had said, I don't tell my students what to do, what not to do. They are free to exercise their free will and just do whatever is necessary. Of course, listen to a qualified teacher, but as far as a lifestyle, how do you conduct yourself, that's not for me to tell you. But he says, having said that, I will tell you one thing. Do not waste your time to go to this vipassana. Yes, Swami Dayananda, I still remember that satsang so clearly in Sailorsburg. He said, he never talked about that when we were the students at Piercy, but subsequent to that, in one of the visits to 1 week or 2 week camps at Swamiji, I saw this talk at the satsang. And he said, I have, of course, he has never been to Vipassana himself, so that doesn't need to. But he has a number of students who kind of tested it and would give their reports about Vipassana. And they will tell Swamiji, this is what happened, this is what they do, this is how I felt, this, that, or the other. Based on that, Swamiji's conclusion was, stay away from it. There's no need to do that. So the reason I'm saying that is because last week, I watch a lot of, but I read a lot of news from India as one of my hobbies during the whole day. I have the Google News on all the time. And the interesting thing is that it's like a newspaper that keeps on changing the whole day. New articles are given. It's a dynamic newspaper. Very beautiful. My wife cannot really understand it, how I can spend so much time. And any time when I have some free time, I'll just switch it on. So let's see what happens today. So I was reading through all this. So there was an article by a person who said, my recent experiences in Vipassana. So I said, well, this is interesting. I should read this. So I read that just a couple of days ago. I think it was in a online news source called The Print. I think so. And so I read through the whole thing. It was identical. He says, all my life my friends were saying, you've got to go there, you've got to go there. Finally, I just went. And this was a 10-day camp. He says, on the 4th day, I could not take it any longer. And I just walked out, told the front desk, I'm not coming back. And they were all saying, you can't do this, you cannot leave in the middle. He says, yes, I can. I've had it. He says it was the most pressure-filled attempt at making everybody peaceful. You cannot talk to anyone, and you cannot really, your own thoughts have to be well controlled, morning through evening, and there's some mantras were given to them and so on. Anyway, I just took that detour just to make a point that really simply repeating aham asangaha, aham asangaha, aham purna, aham ayamatma, it doesn't do anything. Yeah, you'll get a little bit peace, which is okay, but not really what will happen, what you want to happen. It won't happen. So therefore, what we need to do is to understand the detail behind which my mind is unable to grasp the truth that is being told to me. Here's what I have to do. I have to systematically go through where am I going wrong and seek help wherever I necessary. And so here, as Swami Akhandananda ji has done, he has really taken the refuge of Bhagavad Gita, which is absolutely the most marvelous book, especially for a sadhaka, for a grihastha. And it given all of the advice that is necessary. The problem is that I just read it like a book. Often people will say, I've now memorized the 2nd chapter, I've memorized the 15th chapter, I've done this, and I do parayana, and so on and so forth. Good, that's good. It's better than not doing it. But how do you feel? Oh, well, I don't quite understand. That's the issue. You think these are just words that should be sounding good? Or do they have some penetrating effect? You'll say, oh my God, I cannot believe that I didn't see this before. Which is what's supposed to happen. Really in your life. This is exactly your own mind, your own self, your own mind will say to yourself, not to anybody else. Oh my goodness, I cannot. How could I have missed this before? This is remarkable. So then you're getting somewhere. If you feel sincerely, not just say that to yourself. And so what it means is, because you need the cooperation of your mind. If your buddhi is saying, 2nd chapter of the Gita says this, the 18th chapter of the Gita says this, and so on, and the mind says, really? I don't get it. Then you've got a problem in bridging the mind and the buddhi. But if they're all together and they have a good understanding of what the intent of the teaching is, they both will say, wow. So that's the spirit of the understanding that we have to do. So now let's go back to a more specific treatment from this book. So in the last few classes, if you remember, we have essentially talked about 2 ways to understand that I am not the karta. There is a whole lot going on. Sometimes behind the scenes, sometimes right in front of me, as we will revise that today. That I just failed to notice, failed to take into account, failed to recognize. And then the more you think about it, the more you read about it, the clearer that becomes. So the 2 ways that we had talked about up till now, basically there was a lot of other variations, but 2 main things I'll point out. The first one was given in a lot of other places, but also very prominently given in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, verse number 27, which said, Prakritehi kriyamanani gunaihi karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimudhatma kartaram iti manyate. So essentially it says, my dear student, there are two forces at work. One is two forces of work by Prakriti, the natural order of the world. And the two forces are guna and karma. So guna means there are so many qualities that are intermingling. And we will go into this in more detail, maybe not even tonight, but in the next class. Because Swamiji has done a wonderful job of introducing the basics, then he expands it. He takes each branch, expands it, so that at the end you have a lot of detail to chew on for that concept. So there is, basically it says that there is Prakriti at work. And karma. Karma meaning your sense of doing it or not doing it. Effects of all of that. We will study all this in some detail. So these things are at play. They are very busy. It's kind of like, a machine is, as we talked about in the last class also, that you are doing some things like steering the wheel and putting the brake on at the right moment when you see the red light. My son was telling me that this 2-year-old, now not just 2 years, she's 2 years and 4 months old. But now she sits towards the front, so she's not in the back. She's now weighs enough that you can do that. So she sits in the back. And he says, Dad, this girl is so sharp. If she sees a stop sign coming up, she recognizes it. And he says, Dad, stop sign. Make sure you don't go through it. So he says, okay, I know. So she's noticing all that. Where is the stop sign? I guess she doesn't know all the other signs yet, but stop sign she knows. So yeah, you're doing a few things. Stop, steer. Other than that, I mean, the thing is that you have to, it's a very important function that you're doing. But if you total up all the elements of the car that are functioning, all the computers now, my God, so many computers. Electric cars, all the functions through the battery, and the transmission of the forces to the wheel. Oh God, it is a complex machinery. And there's so much going on. And but you have a important but a small role to play. Similarly, here he says, Prakritehi kriyamanani gunaihi karmani sarvashaha. There is a lot going on. Be aware of that. And we will go into this in some more detail. I'm just giving you the introduction to this. But then what happens is, that even though there is so much going on, but you feel, I am the doer. Kartaram ahankara vimudhatma kartaram iti manyate. This is the first thing that was talked about in this analysis of kartritvam and jivatvam. The second thing that was talked about, which is what we spent most of our time in the last two classes on, is not only the Saguna Prakriti, which is the Jada Prakriti, the inert Prakriti that you see, like a car, even though it's moving and so on, but it has to be operated on. So it's a Jada Prakriti. Not only is the Jada Prakriti is going on to help you doing things, even the Sattvic Prakriti, which is yourself as a doer, not just as a Jada, but the very electricity, not only the appliance, but also the electricity. That also is being functioned by Ishvara, not by you. You feel I'm the doer, I'm the bhokta, I'm doing this, I did this yesterday, I have some plans, I've got to do that. All of those, you feel it's I. Even that, I am sorry to say, I mean, not me personally, but Shastra says, I have to tell you, even that you are not doing. Who is doing that? Ishvara is doing it. So the second topic that we went through in great detail was Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hriddesher Janatishthati Brahmayan Sarvabhutani Yantra Arudhani Mayaya. And so we went into quite a bit of detail on that. We took the help of Panchadashi, the 6th chapter, verse number 171, I think it was. Okay, so we did these two. Now these two factors. So one you can say is the inert Prakriti, and the other one is the Prakriti based on the Atma itself. Sattvic Prakriti, if you may recall it. Both of these will be woven together into some kind of a lattice that we will have to examine in order to convince ourselves that yes, there are things going on. So we'll go into that in more detail. But at first, the two factors have been delineated separately. What are the two factors? One is the Jada Prakriti, and the other one is the Sattvic Prakriti. Okay, now in the last class, towards the end, we observed an important fact. And this was pointed out in one of the verses from Panchadashi, and is in the backdrop of the Bhagavad Gita's dialogue. Particularly a question asked by Duryodhana. So Duryodhana was a person who was not in control of his, he would get angry, and he's doing things from a Kaurava standpoint, which is adharmic, not dharmic. So we know about all that. He's a quote unquote a bad guy. So he asks his teacher, there's something I don't understand. I want to do the right thing. But why is it that I end up doing the wrong thing? And he says this happens again and again. And it's very frustrating. It's like my inside conscience says, I think this is what you need to do, but there are some pressures. And I don't know what those pressures are. Where are they coming from? That make me do things that are not inimical to me. not beneficial to me. They are inimical to me. They are not beneficial to me. Because really speaking, we are all in love with who we are, is what it says. Ahamasmi sadabhami kadachit naham apriyaha. Apriyaha aham na. I can understand it. My own benefit at heart never leaves me. And yet, I don't understand why I keep doing things that are harmful to me. This happens every day. You weigh yourself and you say, oh my God, I am gaining weight. And I don't want to really eat as much sweets, carbohydrates, this, that, or the other. I gotta cut down. I know this is not good for me. And yet when it comes to eating, you feel actually you can't even blame anybody. Sometimes in the newlywed marriages, the spouse will tell you, come on, it's okay, have another one, because of pure love for you. But if you've been married for a long time, he or she doesn't care, you are on your own. And yet you overeat. And you feel like, I shouldn't be overeating. Just this morning I told myself I'm going to be overweight, I should reduce my eating. Why? Why does this happen? So this is an important thing which is analyzed. And so we should understand that as part of this lattice work of guna and karma and also Ishvara. So we will go into this in more. So to start on that topic, it says that there is some unseen force that does make you do things that are not good for you. There are. And just by saying, from now on, I am not going to eat any sweets, is not enough. So here, Swami Akhandananda has given this verse from the Bhagavad Gita. This is on chapter 18, verse number 59. So the one that we had studied before, Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hriddeshe Arjunas Tishtati, was number 61. So this is 59, 2 verses before that. It says, Yad ahankaram ashritya na yotsyate iti manyase mithya esha vyavasayaha te prakritis tvam niyokshyati. One other time. Yad ahankaram ashritya na yotsya iti manyase mithya esha vyavasayaste prakritis tvam niyokshyati. So the meaning of this is, hey Arjuna, this is advice from Sri Krishna to Arjuna. It says, hey Arjuna, if you take refuge in your own ahankara. Ahankara means that a kind of thinking that this is what I am, this is what I want to do. As a person, as a jiva, this is I've resolved. And so that all comes from the aham buddhi. Ahamkara here means aham buddhi. And so the aham buddhi says So he says that if taking refuge in this aham buddhi, you think you are not going to fight, because that's exactly what happened. Because Arjuna had refused to fight, he had taken off all of his armament and so on, and he says, I don't want to fight this. I've resolved. I'm sure about it. This is the first line. Yad ahankaram ashritya na yotsya iti manyase. If you think that, then, second line, mithya esha vyavasayaha te prakritihi tvam niyokshyati. He says, this is a false nishchaya. This is a course of action. This is a conclusion. That was the word I was looking for. This is your conclusion is going to be scattered very soon. You're going to be scattered. You're not going to be able to come through with this decision. Why not? What will happen? Prakritihi tvam niyokshyati. So here, in explaining the Prakriti, if you look at, I did this couple of different translations. This translated as Swabhava. So Prakriti here is your Prakriti. Each one of us has a Prakriti. There is a general Prakriti, of course, that we are facing. But here this is my Swabhava, my nature. So as you know very well, should not come as a surprise to you, but in case you haven't really heard this, there are two words. One is called Swarupa and the other one is called Swabhava. Huge difference between those two. Swarupa means my innate true nature is called Swarupa. Swasya rupam iti swarupam. My own nature, the reality. Then the second word is swabhava. So swabhava means all the way I play my role. Swarupa is the person who plays the roles, and Swabhava is the role itself. So each one of us has different roles, different Swabhavas. So this is why you find there is you say this is the Swabhava of the person. Somebody says, my God, she stopped the car and she helped this person who had fallen off the bike. And what a wonderful thing she did. And somebody else says, that's her nature. That's her Swabhava. She's a very helpful person. So this nature of doing things, Swarupa is the same for everybody. So Swabhavas are all different. So here the words Prakriti means your own nature. This is a huge discussion. We are going to go through this in more detail. Your nature, your and my nature, it's not just your nature, all of our nature, has been built up over a long time. The way we behave is the way I am used to behaving. your personality. So that's another way to look at that. That was the word I should have used. One is person, the other one is personality. So here I think there's a very important thing to see, that sometimes, when you say personality, here the personality also means not only your thinking, your mind, your attitudes, whether you're a calm person or get angry more easily, whether you forgive other people, all those kinds of things. But even the way your body, the way you dress up is also part of the personality. So you can have people who they don't care. Like, the old hippies and the new, I don't know what the new words are. Hobbies. They don't care what. They say this is just so, I don't want to. They'll say, why are you wearing the same thing? It's like pajamas. Did you sleep in them? And she says, yeah. He or she says, yes, I slept in them. And didn't you change that? No, why should I? Anyway, the way you dress up is also part of your personality. The way you keep whether you have a beard or you're clean shaven. And if you have hair, unlike me, how do you coiffure it? What is it, Q4? I don't know, that's a French word. So that's all part of the personality. So that's the nature. This is what is said, this is Prakriti, which has been going on for a long time. There's a lot of influences from your parents, from your grandparents, from your teachers. All of that is part of your personality, is really what you are. So in the case of this example of Sri Krishna and Arjuna, we have talked about this before, Swami Dayananda also has explained this part very well. Because he says that Arjuna says, your words sound excellent to me. I should have really listened to you a long time ago. I don't know why I took all this training on warring and being a leader and becoming an expert killer with my arrows. I think just doing meditation on the banks of the Ganga is really what I want to do. I was mistaken, and I think I'll be very peaceful. Your words about the Atma just are music to my ears, and I really want to do this, and I am going to give up. Krishna says, not so fast, Buster. That's not going to happen. That's exactly what it says. He says, your Prakriti, you have decided not to fight. Yad ahankaram ashritya na yotsya iti manyase, that I am not going to fight. Are you, first of all, you can even question that. Are you sure? Yeah, I'm totally sure. I've thought about it. I've been mulling over it. It's not a last-minute decision. Sri Krishna, what do you think I am? I'm a very thoughtful person. And I have decided I'm not going to fight. Krishna says, really? Interesting. Can I tell you something? This resolution is not going to hold up. Why will not be held up? Because I am resolving that this is what I'm going to do. My dear, your resolution is maybe what, a week old? No, it's been longer than that. Okay, how long? 1 month. Okay, it's 1 month old. All right, I'll grant you that. I don't think it is that much, but okay. Your Prakriti has been shaped over 1 million lives Each time your average age was 65. 65 million years your Prakriti has been. You know how powerful that is? And you're just resolving for 1 week. It's just going to be scattered. Like, something hitting a big rock. Nothing will happen to the rock. But what hits it will shatter. Not going to work, my dear. Telling you. You have been training for many lives, and certainly in this life, to be a leader, to be a fighter. You've trained for it. You've practiced it. And in this last minute, you're saying, I cannot do this, and so on and so forth. It's not going to work. So, what it says is that if one sort of resolves that I am alone, I'm independently acting. I'm independently acting. I am responsible for my life. And please help me if you can, but I'm pretty much alone in doing so. This is an absolute mistake. This is not the case. So we take up a more detailed analysis of guna guneshu vartante iti matvana sajjate. He says, it's not going to happen because it is not real. This kind of a resolution that this is my nature, etc., it's not going to work. So here Swami Akhandananda gives a very interesting example from his village life. So Swami Akhandananda was born, as he is written in his autobiography, beautiful autobiography, just so beautiful. How many, his memory of names. I can't remember even 1 month ago. I must say I met some of the students in Swami Sachidananda's class, and I must say there's a lot of people that they've been with me for a long time. I don't remember their names. Sorry to say. Their faces are very clear to me, but I don't remember their names. Swami Akhandananda remembers names from 70 years. 80 years. I think he lived at the age about 80, 88, 85, 86, something like that. So he was from a village near Varanasi. And the village life and the people there is really fascinating. And one very interesting thing about in this autobiography called, I think I've talked about it, called Pavana Prasanga. That's the name of this book, Pavana Prasanga. So Prasanga means Prakarshena Sangha, my companionship, my closeness with so many people. And Pavana means pure, so blissful. It's just like it said, this is like a blissful relationships with many people. That's the one. Anyway, so one of the interesting things he points out is, which was really something new, I did not understand this until I read that, is how many villages have some Mahatmas that are just sitting there. How many villages? Every 5, 6, 10 village. It's not like I remember when I studied with Swami Dayanandji and so on, somehow the feeling was that he's a unique person and he's, wonderful, one of the best in this century and so on. I've revised my opinion, not downward from him, he's such a great person. But there are many such people all around the world. They just don't teach, that's all, until you go and ask them. That's a completely separately thing. But Swami Akhandananda gives this example of a village life. He says this is how things are done in villages. So he says what happens is that he says, I remember this very clearly. There was a marriage proposal in the form of the bride, the girl's parents visiting the boy's parents and evaluating them. They were from a different village. And this is how these arranged marriages are. Somebody says, oh, you've been looking for a boy for your daughter. There's this boy living in such and such village. You should go and see him. So they make some inquiries and finally they bring their, I don't know, they probably not bring their daughter. It's not, the daughter is not given. It's interesting. In the year 1950, 1950. So I was living with my grandparents in Amritsar. So my middle level uncle, Mamaji, my mother's brother, she had three brothers, the oldest, the middle one, and the youngest. So the middle one used to live in that house. And so when he was about 25 or so, my grandparents went to Delhi to look at a girl. So they left in a train. They were gone for a few days. And when they came back in a rickshaw, I still remember this so well, in a rickshaw from the railway station to the house, the rickshaw was full of sweets and fruits. And both of them were beaming. And so my mama, Paul Mama, Yash Paul was his name, he also opened the door and he was very shy and he didn't say anything. He just touched their feet and then started to unload the rickshaw, pay the rickshaw guy. I'm standing there watching this whole scene. There was no talk by anybody. The implication was this is very successful. We saw the girl, we were very happy, and this is going to go through. So we exchanged pleasantries, we exchanged some gifts. So they are pretty much for all intents and purposes engaged. They were never brought a photograph because in those days you have to go to a photographer, get it all done and so on. They didn't have the time to do so. And my Yashpal Mamaji would never ask them, what did she look like? How old is she? No, nothing. Just accepted whatever it is, so on. And in fact, it was interesting. So when my Mamiji, she's still there, she's close to 91, 92. Yashpal Mamaji had passed away a long time ago, but she's still there. If I ever go to Amritsar, I always see her, which I haven't been for quite a while. When she came at the time of the marriage, so she had a big ghungat. She had a big, so you're not supposed to show your face. So you are just a covered cloth. And it's a thin cloth and she can kind of see through it a little bit, but keeps her eyes closed. And we were all anxious to find out what does she look like. So I still remember I was like 8 or 9 years old. And so we were allowed, children, to lift up her gungat and peek through and see her. And people will say, what does she look like? So we'll say, oh, she has this complexion and she's got, very nice face, this, that, or the other. Anyway, these are all customs, and this is actually was a big city at that time. So Swami Akhandananda gives this, I'm running out of time, but I think I'll complete this picture. So Swami Akhandananda says that what would happen is that people would bring, they would come and look at the boy. Look at the family. They won't even look at the boy, but look at the family and the boy, the house, because that's where the daughter is going to be living from now on. Because she will no longer live with her parents. After the marriage, she will move in with this family. So they were anxious to make sure. So Swamiji is reciting this. So he says, before these people came, what many of the villagers would do, and this family did it, this was a poor family. They didn't have a lot of assets. They had some land, and they were okay. They were not that poor, but they were not rich either. But you know what they did? They would borrow a cow or two cows, and they would tie it to near their front door. They'll go to a horse. They'll go to somebody that has a horse, and rent a horse for 4 or 5 hours, and also put and then they would mow the lawn and so on and so forth, and they will have some servants that are just working there. It looks like it's a rich man's home, all borrowed. And so when the girl's parents all came, they all said, this is a pakka house. They've got 2 cows. They've got a horse. And also Swamiji said there was a what was called a dharmashala. Dharmashala means this is where people can live without paying any rent for a few days. All the places used to have dharmashalas, and there's a kitchen. You see, in the Vedic times, there were no restaurants. It was not proper to sell food. Selling of food is not kosher. In fact, the downfall of the society came when food was offered for a price. This is the Kali Yuga. So in those days, if you are traveling, there will be a dharmashala where there will be cooking going on. You can just sit there, eat, and then move on. So they used to have a dharmashala in the village. So the boy's parents said, you know this dharmashala? I made it. I gave them the money and we put his mine. They said, really? So they were highly impressed and they said, this marriage is pakka. But as usually happens after the marriage, the reality comes out. And now it's too late because you cannot take the girl back. All the rites have been done and everything is all finished. And then, as it happens very often, over-promising of dowry, under-delivery, there are a lot of tensions that occur. This is all part of the life in arranged marriages. So that one all goes back later on. But at least at that moment, you usurped all the properties and made it look like as it is yours. Why is Swamiji making this into an important story? He says, this is what we do. This is what we do. We came into their world naked, nothing on it, unable to even drink milk by ourselves. One by one, things are given to us. Then we grow. And he is saying that the body is like a dharmashala. It processes food. You can feed into it. And then you find that you have lots of things that you are tied to the body. They are all given to you. They are the gifts of devas and devatas. Without them you cannot function. But you just take it for granted. You just say, this is mine. So for example, you cannot see without the sun. Gayatri, Savitri, the sun blesses you. Can you imagine seeing without the sun? Can your eyes function? So that is the Devata for the eyes. But you ignore it. Oh, sun, what's the big deal? It's supposed to come every day anyway. Same thing with all the disha, the space, the hearing, not possible without left and right and the space. So many things. And you say, this is me. This is mine. Is it really? And so this is exactly like, like these people who pretended as though everything is theirs when it isn't. And they have to pay a price, because once those people find out later on after the marriage, and my gosh, they don't have any single cow, they don't have any horse, they don't have any fields. What kind of respect you will have? This is exactly what happens to us. Except it's far worse, because we are clinging to this is mine, this is me. You face death. It is much better while you are alive to start to understand these are all gifts given to you. Enjoy it, but don't call it yours. Don't say you're doing it. There's a lot of stuff going on. If you do that, you are free before death. So this is the trend of these talks, and we will go into a little bit more detail about how to identify the various things that are not mine, but I usurp them as mine, resulting in a false sense of kartritva. So we will examine this in some more detail in the next class. So with that, let me close today's class. Om Asato Ma Satkamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. So nice to have you all. Wonderful. Hope you're getting up tomorrow morning to watch the moon landing. I hope to do so. I still don't know where I would watch it. I think ISRO has a website, a friend of mine was telling me. But I would imagine the major newspapers like Times of India and NDTV and all those, they will have live telecasts. So hopefully I'll be able to catch it sometime. So if you are absolutely sure about something that looks promising, then send me an email and then I will happy to. But I'm looking forward to it. And good. I don't see any questions per se. So with that, I take your leave and I will hopefully see you next week. Hari Om.